Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Friday, May 23rd. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris. On this episode, George Kirby made his return from a shoulder injury on Thursday night. Results weren't great. Stuff looked pretty good. We'll get the full report from Eno here in just a few minutes. Ronald Acuña Jr. back for Atlanta on Friday night. We'll talk about our expectations for him as he makes his return from his second ACL tear. We've got our usual Friday weekend waiver preview. Lots of would you rather style toss-ups as you try to make some roster decisions going into the long weekend. And of course, our senior hot dog correspondent, Shah, is back with some huge news out of Nationals Park. I am pumped for that today because Niv has something I have never seen in an American ballpark before.
I am pumped for your new swag. You come back from New York with new swag. What is it called? It's like a captain's hat. What is it called when they put the little thing across?
I think of it as a captain's hat. These were big in the 80s and 90s, and it's a special hat. It's an athletic brand hat, and I won it during the meetings.
This is a trivia win?
Not a trivia win. RFP pitch win. Now,
what's that?
It's a request, like it's a partnership, like an ad partnership, right? So you take a brand and you kind of pitch an idea. So we had a bunch of groups. I got to work with a couple of the No Dunks guys. That helped. They're sharp.
They're sharp.
Had Tim McMaster and Adam Jones at the table, two other sharp guys. So I kind of had a stacked team for this. The prize for the best pitch was this hat, which I've never seen on anybody's head before. So they said it was special, and I saw it, and I was like,
and now you feel special.
I feel special. I actually feel like I could very safely handle a boat right now, too.
Even though you have no instructions.
I have no experience whatsoever, but I'm confident. That's the most important thing of all. But let's talk about George Kirby. He was back in action on Thursday, and I got to see a little bit of this at the airport before my flight took off to come home, and I thought the horizontal movement on George Kirby's cutter was really impressive. The velo looked pretty good. Saw some elevated fastballs, the two-seamers up at 98. I think he threw one to Jose Altuve that was just filthy. It was like a better version of the Chris Bassett two-seamer that we talk a lot about on this show. The results, not quite what you hoped for start one from George Kirby. He went 3 2/3, gave up 5 earned runs, struck out 4, and walked 1. But I came away feeling pretty good because of the velocity and movement. What did you think of Kirby's arsenal in his first start of this season coming off the injury?
You know, I have a weekly radio show with Ian Furness on KJR in Seattle. And he asked me what to look for in the start coming back. And one of the first things I said, I'm giving you a second because you can guess it. It was velo, of course. Why not? I mean, you have to know it's one of those things that's meaningful really quickly, and you have to know if the arm is all right and if everything's in there. And as I think it was Billy Epler once famously said, velo is the single most predictive stat for a pitcher success. If you're just going to take one sort of raw stat, I'd say stuff plus, but yeah.
You'd say stuff plus. Interesting.
But it's a combined stat. I think he was talking about sort of just a one sort of raw number. Any case, the velo was there. The other thing I said was, will he throw all his pitches? When you're coming back from TJ, and I know George Kirby is not coming back from TJ, but when you're coming back from TJ, they won't let you throw the slider. And so, I thought if and I talked to Greg Crochet once, he's like, I can't throw the splitter because my arm hurts when I throw the splitter. So, it was like that sort of thing is like, is he healthy enough to throw all his pitches? And you might say, oh, he didn't throw any sliders. Big problem. That's in fact what I said on the Furness show. I was like, what if he doesn't throw any sliders? What then? He threw a bunch of sliders. They were called cutters. So I fully expect this to be rectified. If you look at his cutter movement last year, it had 9 inches vertical IVB. And if you look at his cutter yesterday, it had -1. But if you look at his slider last year, he had -3 IVB. And 8 glove side movement, and the cutter had 9 inches of cutter movement this year and 1 inch last year. So it's the slider. Anyway, it's the slider. What is nice about it is it's 88 miles an hour, and it has more movement than last year's slider. So a little bit less depth, a little bit more sideways. It in fact looks a little bit like an 88 mile an hour sweeper. So that's good news. 965 on the sinker, good news. I think all of it is good news. The one weird thing was Statcast says he didn't throw any splitters, but he was using the splitter grip, when he was like setting up. So I don't know. Did he bring back the old changeup? I wasn't there in the clubhouse afterwards. It's possible he brought back the old changeup. It's possible he's throwing two changeups, the splitter and the changeup. That is left to be known. But I wouldn't say that means that much health-wise. What he gets is like a B+ grade for health. The only thing that was weird is that, his locations were bad. So was he throwing super hard to prove that he was healthy and lost location? Is he going to go down in velo but have better location next time? There's still a little bit of a, I won't give him an A+ for health. But he threw all his pitches. They had good stuff. He just didn't have good command. Which is good for him, but
it's unusual for him to not have good command. So you tend to err on the side of that will come back. But your point about it maybe coming at the expense of a tick off some of those pitches, that could be the trade-off that George Kirby has to make. But all in all, if you've been waiting, had him on the IL, had him stashed on your bench, you're probably feeling okay at the worst about what happened. Probably more good than that, even because the pitches I thought looked good. I'm glad you clarified the differences, though. Because when I saw that cutter, especially, I just thought, "Wow,
is that a cutter?
It doesn't look like a cutter, but if it is, it's really nasty.
Yeah,
whatever it is, it's a good pitch."
I traded him while he was hurt in ottoneu in my league where I'm rebuilding. In one league, I think I'm going for it. I'm like, I haven't won an ottoneu league. I have so many silvers and bronzes, and this is the year I'm going for it. So in that league, I'm trying to get Soto, and trying to put the cherry on the top of this great team. The other league, I'm rebuilding. So I traded Kirby for Jack Caglione. And I do think Jack's got to be close. I don't think Hunter Renfroe is doing a lot for me in that Royals outfield. And Jack just keeps, doing well and playing the outfield in the minors.
Yeah, they certainly need the boost in that lineup, as we talked about. I think it was last week we dug in a little bit. And there's a few guys that we think are going to regress back towards their projections in a good way and help get them there. But Caglione would be one more really important power bat if he comes up and can kind of hit the ground running for that Kansas City lineup. We did see Julio Rodriguez got scratched with some back tightness on Thursday. It seems like a day-to-day injury for now. No further information was available. Let's get to Ronald Acuña Jr. He is going to be back in the Atlanta lineup on Friday. Great to get him back. And it's still, to me, one of those situations where I couldn't really trust the projections that were being spit out. And they're amazing, right? Oopsie's got a 304, 391, 551 line for the rest of the season. 23 homers, 29 steals. That's with a 99-game projection, right? So that's in less than 2/3 of a full season. The projections are going to tell you that Ronald Acuña Jr. is still a superstar. And while I think he very likely will get back to that level at some point, we've both been concerned this entire time. The projections can't quite mold to Acuña coming off surgery before, even though he's had this happen once already. We saw him come back previously and not immediately have the same level of power. We saw even the beginning of 2024, before he suffered the second ACL tear, he wasn't carrying over the same power that he had shown us in 2023 when he popped 41 homers and stole 73 bases. So there were questions before that second injury last year. And at least now we're at the point we finally get to see how he's going to answer them.
Yeah, a couple things stand out to me. Really short rehab stint. 6 games, 1 at the complex, 5 at AAA. But his results down there kind of make you wonder, what's the point of a long rehab stint? Like he was hitting 417, just demolishing minor league pitching with a 40% walk rate. Basically, it's like, what's he gonna like? How's he gonna get accustomed to major league pitching in the minor leagues? The other thing that stands out was no stolen bases in those 6 games. And I think that's the hardest part for us to figure out, which is like, so you could use his return from the last one, which was that 2022?
Yes, that should have been 2022.
when he hit 15 homers and stole 29 bases, you could use that as a baseline and reduce off of that. But that was also a year before they changed the stolen base rules.
Mm-hmm.
So my back of napkin was for like a 280 2020 season. That's sort of what I was hoping for. He's coming back maybe a little bit later than last time, a little bit later than I had maybe anticipated. But projections right now, I'll say, 320, 30. I'm just going to take the under on all those projected stolen base totals. The last thing I want to mention is last time he came back from his injury and he couldn't lift the ball. I know it's only been 6 games, but that has not been the case in the minor leagues. So he's been doing nothing but lifting the ball. So I wonder if it's possible he learned something from the last time, and it's possible he used some of the time off to, because he had been hitting a lot of ground balls, ever since that first ACL injury, and it had sapped some of his power before the injury last year. So maybe that was something he was thinking about as he was coming back.
I think it's a strange thing to say, but having rehabbed a major injury once before, maybe the milestones and hurdles were a little easier to understand. Like he was more in tune with how he was feeling, knowing what was normal and what wasn't in this rehab process. And perhaps even though it's still the same amount of hard work, maybe that enabled him to focus a little bit more on being more prepared, refined, like pushing himself in certain ways to just, I don't know, make the adjustments faster, if that makes sense.
And knowing what he could do, I think when the first time you're like, I don't know what I'm allowed to do, how I can push it, whatever. And the second time you can be like, oh, I can take dry swings now, and I didn't last time, but I can take, I can stand in the box. There's all these things I can do. And he's probably even more impatient the second time. I feel like it's like, oh God, this again. I got to get out there. I got to do something while I'm rehabbing.
The series for Acuña's return, by the way, it's a Braves-Padres series. That should be a great one on the slate this weekend. So aside from Acuña's return, that's just a great matchup to get excited about.
Be watching those games.
Yeah, see a little bit of that this weekend. Some other news to get to here. I saw Ronel Blanco seeking a second opinion on his elbow. That is not great. We've talked about this Astros rotation and questions about their depth now for a few weeks. And Blanco himself, he has not pitched the same level we saw a year ago. And I think that even accounts for the no-hitter at the beginning of the year and him not, sustaining his season results all year last year. Like there's a little bit of a adjust for that amazing start that kind of skews your numbers a little bit. And you're still like, okay, something's off with Ronel Blanco. I don't feel good. Yeah. Like velo's down. Yeah. And like, he's still important to them. So if this ends up being a relatively minor injury, then I imagine he spends more time in their rotation than not because they need him to. But if they lose him, that's one more level of depth that I just don't think the Astros really have in-house. I mean, after we talked to Chandler Rome about this a couple of weeks ago, AJ Blubaugh, a guy you mentioned on the show recently, again, is probably someone who steps in and has a more prominent role for whatever the duration of Blanco's absence turns out to be.
I don't think it was necessarily. I think the vibes are bad, and this, second. I don't like second opinions.
Generally not good.
And I think that if you're in a tight pinch, given his relative quality, and unless you're in a deep keeper league or something, I think you have to move on and just keep on moving. But looking back, I don't think they pushed him too hard. I mean, he had 125 innings, in 2023 and 167 in 2024. That doesn't seem like they pushed him too hard.
No, I don't think this was year over year workload increases.
We've studied things like, do strike throwers, get hurt less often. And there was something a little bit to that. There was something Billy Beane said. Jeff Zimmerman found a little bit of signal in that. I mean, part of that signal could just be strike throwers throw fewer pitches. And Ronel Blanco is not a strike thrower. The other one was, do changeup guys stay healthier longer because they pronate more? There was a little bit of signal with that too, but Ronel Blanco is a changeup thrower. So I don't know. I've lost my taste for divining injury.
Yeah, it's never been a fun thing to do.
I don't really like the Astros coming up. To me, Colton Gordon is super soft tossing lefty, and it's possibly overperforms model results, and he already has like a 98 stuff plus because he has a really good slider. So it's possibly he's usable, but it's not that much fun to watch. It's like this one of those just like really slow backdoor sliders and backdoor breaking balls, and then surprise fastballs, and I don't know. It just for me, it's like not appealing. But there's something in common with Chris Bubich actually, with the way Chris Bubich uses his curveball, his breaking ball. Righties for some reason don't swing at it, and I've seen the same thing with Gordon. So there's this type of shape that you can get where a lefty throws a big breaking ball, and the righty I think they think it's a ball the whole way, So Gordon could be usable in streamer situations and deep leagues, and I think he's going to have a spot with Blanco being out because Arrighetti hasn't started throwing yet, and so the rotation right now is Valdez, Brown, McCullers, Gordon, and Gusto. Right. Gusto, I've fallen off of pretty much completely because every time he starts, the fastball stuff plus drops below. Like if he goes 4 or 5 innings, the fastball stuff plus drops below 100, and he doesn't have any other pitch that's above 100. So he's like somebody that really needs that fastball to be good. And if it's not that great, then I'm not that into him. So it's like I get some like sort of Ryan Nelson-y vibes. It's just like, oh, good fastball. You're going to be good sometimes, but I don't trust you.
Right. But what else do you have to put with it? So we'll see if we get some results from that second opinion, some kind of follow-up between now and Monday. But I think Gusto versus Blue Ball is probably the ongoing job battle for the last spot. And Gordon's spot, as you alluded to, is not necessarily a firm hold right now either. So the Astros have some problems to work out. Some other injury follow-ups. We got Lane Thomas back from the IL. Nice boost for that Guardians lineup potentially. Yeah, that's the surprising part, right?
Yeah. Because Angel Martinez had been playing center for them, I believe. And Lane Thomas's defensive numbers aren't great, but I do think that they just want to get him in there. I think that they need more offense, and their best way to get more offense is to stick him in center.
Yeah, right up in that number 2 spot in the lineup for that return too. So I think he's a good pickup in shallow leagues where he wasn't held. Obviously, he's kept in a lot of leagues that have IL spots and deeper formats. Gleyber Torres banged up again, left early with some kind of leg injury. Don't know what the details of that are yet, so keep an eye on that as you're setting lineups this weekend and around the holiday on Monday. Mike Trout making some progress in his bid to get back from the IL. He's pain-free after jogging, so kind of in the early parts of his ramping up activities. I saw Corey Seager still another 7 to 10 days away from activation with that hamstring injury, so plan accordingly if you've been trying to manage without him. Jordan Westburg on track for an early June return. Can't come soon enough for an Orioles team just trying to hold it together.
Later than we expected. He'd had basically a setback, it seemed. He was about to come back, and there was a setback for Jordan Westburg. So hopefully this is the new correct number. That would be still another 2 weeks. So this has been not the fastest healing process, but I expect him to be good when he comes back, but perhaps we should dial back these stolen base expectations. They weren't that high to begin with. But what if he only steals 2 or 3 more bases this year?
Yeah, well, that's a fair question to consider dialing that back on Westburg, given the nature of that injury. I also saw Justin Verlander goes on the IL with a pec strain. Curious what you think the Giants might do to backfill that rotation spot temporarily, having recently flipped the roles of Hayden Birdsong and Jordan Hicks, having Kyle Harrison in the big league bullpen. Do they go someone out of the bullpen to take that spot, or do you think there's a new depth guy that kind of circles in to make a couple of starts?
I would say that Giants fans are sort of pounding the table for Carson Whisenhunt.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers in the minors for Carson Whisenhunt, I mean, he's a changeup artiste. And the Stuff Plus bot likes the changeup and doesn't really like the rest. 99 on the slider, 88 on the sinker, 68 on the curve. That's just one pitch. Don't worry about that. And no four-seamer. So sinker slider change makes him, a little bit vulnerable to splits. Kyle Harrison, though, has not been pitching long. I mean, he had a 4-inning hold, a 4-out hold, and a 1 inning, and a 2 inning and a 1 inning. So he's not stretched out. So I don't actually know what the team does here. We don't have a corresponding move yet, do we?
I don't think we do. That move would come probably prior to Friday's game. The Whisenhunt call actually makes a lot of sense, though, for a few reasons. Yeah, he's pitched really well at AAA. That's among those reasons. He also pitched on May 18th, so he's able to pitch pretty much any time as needed. He's been on a schedule at times this year where he's had regular 4 days rest. It's amazing, too. Like, he's giving the depth at AAA. 28 innings pitched over his last 4 starts. He's gone 7 in all of those outings, hasn't given up more than 2 earned runs in any of them. Back-to-back 7 scoreless inning appearances against Salt Lake, 14 Ks. I mean, for the season, 52-7 strikeout to walk in 51 innings. It'd be weird if they didn't give him a chance, even as a temporary fill-in here.
Yeah, I guess the only other competition he has down there is Keaton Wynn, who has 3 outings, 2 innings pitched, 4 2/3, and 4. And that last one was April 15th, so he might even be hurt. Yeah, he might be hurt. He is. He's hurt. Okay, great. Good job, So, I mean, I guess the option is basically bullpen days with, maybe using Kyle Harrison as the bulk pitcher where they're kind of pushing him a little bit. Joey Lucchesi still in the organization. It's funny how depth goes away so quickly. This is why I think teams never want to trade. There was some discussion. Will the Giants trade away from depth in pitching? It's like, well, one injury and suddenly you're like,
right.
How much depth do they have?
Right. I think they are exactly right in terms of the depth they had going into the season, given some of the injuries they already were dealing with. They had a couple guys coming off of major injuries, Wynn being among them. He's hurt again. Like, there's a lot of moving parts for them that, to me, like, it was well built. It wasn't amazing, but it was like adequate for the personnel that they had at their disposal. I think Whisenhunt's going to be a popular ad in deeper leagues where he's available, though, because of that success.
Would you put a lot of money on him?
Not like a smash bid. I mean, I think when George Kirby got called up a few years ago, that was like a 20 to 25% fab sort of bid. Carson Whisenhunt versus Logan Henderson maybe is more of a reasonable comp in terms of
there's some similarities there. Yeah, change up first. Yeah. But Logan Henderson's a bit more four-seam change,
Yeah, but I just think in terms of like upper level minor league success, and well, especially in Whisenhunt's case too, home park where you feel pretty good about streaming. If you find out he's coming up, I think that's probably your relative guide to what it's going to take to win Carson Whisenhunt. And I think that
might be a 10%er guy, huh?
It might be. I guess we would need a little more information on the Verlander injury too. Like, there's probably no reason to believe they would go to
Is it a tear? Is it a
right? Is it a grade 1 thing where it's like 3 starts and then he's going back down, or is it something a little more severe where he gets 5 to 7 starts and then someone else might get hurt while he's up? Right? If the window's open long enough, then you can be a little more aggressive with that bid, because even 5 to 7 starts alone could be worth 10% of your budget if he's good for that stretch before he goes down. So that's what I would use as the relative guide for what to do with Carson Whisenhunt where available this weekend. All right, let's get into our weekend waiver preview. We've kind of changed the format of this recently where we're looking at players at different slices of roster rates on CBS because people are making decisions in all different kinds of leagues and we got to make realistic choices, right? So Matt Shah back in the fold for the Cubs. He sort of stood out to me as a name that you really have to decide, like, how high is the floor? How high is the ceiling? Is he really better than what I've already got on my roster? We know that he made some adjustments to his swing, had a lot of success during his time at AAA this year, already up to 66% rostered. If you look at him compared to his actual peers right now, the types of players you're making decisions on instead, guys that would be either corner guys, middle guys, or UTs, Javier Baez has jumped up into that range. I think we expressed some skepticism about Baez's ability to sustain what he's done at the plate. And there's even some playing time questions that creep in eventually as the roster gets healthier. So that might be kind of on the back burner as well. Taylor Ward sitting around a similar roster rate as Shah right now if it's a UT situation. And Jake Berger, who was also demoted to AAA for a little while with the Rangers, he sits in this space as well. So what are you doing in a shallow league with Matt Shah? He may have been scooped up already. If he's still sitting out there, do you see him as a clear upgrade over some of these other similarly rostered players?
I think Taylor Ward is the best pound for pound hitter in the group. And if I just needed power and I assume batting average, I think it actually could be close. And I'll say why in a second. My second favorite is Matt Shah. And I could actually see Matt Shah being my favorite if you had a little bit of need for speed as well. And one thing that I really like is that Matt Shah has really changed the way he stands at the plate. His leg kick no longer takes his leg over the plate like it used to. It's a much smaller leg kick. He's a little bit more open. He used to be the most closed guy in baseball. And he's still kind of, if you look just at his feet, you would think he was not looking at the pitcher. It's very strange. He's still strange, but he's less strange. And the thing I like the most, since he's been back, yes, the hits are good, but hits are fickle. Hits are not predictive. Hits are really hard to model and project. 1 strikeout in 3 games. Completely different than before. There's a thing called change point analysis where you're looking at changes in the data and you're trying to say, is this real? And, is this a real difference? And I think one of the easiest ways to kind of see a difference is in contact rates. See it quickly.
I'm with you there. And I think, he's bottom of the order right now. He's started all 3 games since being recalled. He's hit 9th in all of them, but I think he had 5 hits in that series against the Marlins. And maybe you point to that pitching matchup and say, let's see what he does in a larger sample because we want to see him against better pitching staffs. That's fair and fine as well. But that speed already on display, a couple of steals in that series as well. So it really does look like the adjustments he's making could pay off and nudge him right back to where we thought he could be coming into the season when he was one of the more impactful rookies in this year's group, just based on opportunity, the broad range of skills. Things are looking like they're headed in that direction right now. I don't know how, Taylor Ward, it just seems like is perpetually available in 10-team leagues, even though it's not the case. There's still people in those shallow leagues that roster him, but projections always nudge you towards him. I was surprised to see in the next tier down by roster rate, Dalton Varsho. I know the strikeout rate's high, 33.8% this year since coming back, but still hitting the ball hard, 47.7% hard hit rate. And initially, he wasn't playing every day off the injury. Now he's playing every day again. At least he's never sitting against righties at this point. He's only going to get his days off against lefties as long as he's healthy. And now he's locked into that number 3 spot in the Jays lineup as well. It seems like Dalton Varsho should be more in the conversation with the Taylor Ward, Matt Shah types than in the Jordan Beck range of available in at least half of leagues.
Yeah, big bat speed increaser, over a mile per hour for Varsho, who already was 78th percentile last year. So I think the power that we're seeing, it's always, 400 ISO. Okay, that's not real, but the power is good. And he still has that, really steep swing that's going to lead to low BABIP numbers. Dalton Varsho does. So you're not buying him for batting average, but even given his steep swing, this 189 BABIP for Varsho is it's like 80 points lower than normal. So, oopsie, 241 average, 18 homers, 11 stolen bases. That's actually the best projection on this list because Shah is kind of like 250, 10-10 going forward. And Ward is kind of like 250, 15-2 or something, going forward, maybe 20 homers. They're projecting him for 5 steals, but he's 0 so far. That could be a 0 all year or a 1 or a 2. So Ward is still my favorite. Varsho and Shah are my favorites for different reasons. Varsho and Shah, Varsho, you have to be able to take maybe a little bit of hit in your batting average. It's not going to be there.
Yeah, more likely than not, you are going to go down in that category. So you either have to be willing to punt it or have the cushion where you can absorb it and kind of reap the benefits of everything else that Dalton Varsho brings to the table instead. I don't want to do a complete flyby on Jake Burger. Since coming back from AAA, he has started every game he's been available for the Rangers, locking him right back into that first base spot. So it's 10 in a row for him, including a spot in the cleanup role against the Yankees on Thursday. I think Burger is going to be generally fine. I don't know if he's a shallow league guy for me beyond the fact that he plays every day. So that might be enough to nudge him over the line if you're dealing with injuries, you're dealing with someone who's being platooned. But have you noticed anything different in the underlying numbers for Burger? Kind of came back with a little bit of a hitting streak too. I think seven consecutive games in which he had a hit before finally going 0 for against the Yankees earlier this week. Couple homers though in the middle game of that series.
Yeah, I think the most surprising revelation for me for Burger since the numbers came out, maybe because I don't watch him as much as other players, is that he has a real flat swing, and that should lead to more contact and less power. So that's a really weird combination to think about when you think about Burger. You're thinking about a guy who strikes out a lot and hits for power. I don't know what to do with that other than consider that he should be able to hit pitches at the top of the zone. Maybe he found some way to hit pitches at the bottom of the zone. I don't know, man. I'm just generally in on him if you need power. I think it's actually a better case maybe in terms of max EV, bat speed, barrel rate, hard hit rate. There's a slightly better case for him for just power alone than Taylor Ward. It's just that Taylor Ward makes more contact and should have a slightly better batting average, I think, that puts him behind. So if you want power, for me, it's Ward, then Burger. If you want batting average and power, it's Ward. If you want power and speed, you don't care about the batting average, it's Varsho. If you need batting average, power, and speed, it might be Shah. So all of these have good cases for them, and it's kind of hard to be like my number one pickup. But I think all of them are pickups in 12-team leagues.
Yeah, if they're out there in your 12, they're good enough to be rostered and used in those formats. And people were frustrated at various points because of slumps, demotions. Take the chances where you can on that group. Look a little further down in terms of roster rates. We learned that Denzel Clarke is going to come up for the A's, and earlier this week, Robert Hassell III got promoted by the Nats, which leaves only one player from the Nats trade of Juan Soto to San Diego yet to debut, which is pretty remarkable for that return to have that many big leaguers in it to this point. But just for this season, if you're looking for some outfield help, maybe we'll have a variant of this question for ottoneu, keeper, dynasty, whatever. Denzel Clarke versus Robert Hassell III. Who do you think's the more interesting deep league pickup?
Well, one thing I worry about with Denzel Clarke is he's a right-hander. He also hit 0 homers so far this year in AAA and has that kind of 180-ish to 200 ISO that could be built on legs more than batted ball velocity, though nice 115 max EV with a 68% ground ball rate for Clarke. So he could hit the ball hard on the ground, good plate discipline, okay contact, but he's right-handed, and it seems to me the person he has to outplay is JJ Bleday, who has fallen off and has always had a hole at the top of the zone, and I don't think he's reliably covered it. it's possible that JJ Bleday is on his way to a backup, but he's left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
So the easiest way to squeeze the most juice out of that outfield is to put them in a platoon. I've seen Rooker in the outfield. At the game I went to, Rooker was in the outfield. But Kurtz also has now hit a couple home runs and seems to be staying up through his slump, right? So I think it's Kurtz at first, Soderstrom at DH, sometimes outfield, Rooker DH, sometimes outfield. It's starting to get crowded in there, even if you take Andujar and Bleday out of the picture. That's where Clarke, comes into the picture. So Clarke has to swim move kind of past two guys. Best center field defense, probably.
That's the thing that works in his favor that can flip him out of the small side platoon role. If the A's value what Denzel Clarke can do defensively enough to the point where they feel like that upgrade is worth it, and they're not getting enough from Bleday as a hitter where they want to see if Denzel Clarke can figure it out, this could turn into a pretty enticing pickup. But
the A's are worst in baseball in outs above average. They are second worst in defensive runs saved. They might make this decision based on defense. I've seen some Butler out in center. He did fine the game I was at, but I've talked my way into it. I talk my way around these things, and I've talked my way into it. I think I like Clarke. On the other hand, Hassell, what does Hassell bring to the Nationals they don't have right now? Is it center field defense as well?
Well, he's replacing
more
Dylan
offense
Cruz.
than Young.
Yeah, I think you have to look at Hassell at this point and say we at least want to see what he brings to the table as a hitter because we have a better feel for what Jacob Young is as a hitter.
The projections aren't very kind to Hassell. It's hard for me to hang my hat on anything other than his hard hit rate being up this year at AAA. Maybe he's finally putting a little bit more oomph into the ball, but the rag on him has been kind of a limp bat, and I don't know that I have enough evidence to say that's wrong.
Yeah, you could be encouraged by the 40% hard hit rate at AAA, but you definitely want to see more of that given how low the ISOs have been from Hassell. I think as long as Cruz is hurt, then that there might be enough in deep leagues for Hassell. I think the window for Clarke is bigger. The possibility that he's up and because of his defense plays. For me, I do like Clarke better than Hassell, but Hassell's one of those guys that he was drafted out of high school, a lot of hype. Give him a chance to see if that hard hit rate from AAA at all ports over. If he gets sent back down and continues that, the long-term ceiling might be a little better than we thought it was even just a year ago.
I just want 3 more games in the outfield for Brent Rooker. Can we do that real quick before Clarke takes the job? Can we just do that, please?
That would help a lot of people out there. On the pitching side, I just wanted to ask you about a few guys compared to Shane Baz, because this is the way I think you have to think about it. We don't talk a ton about drops on this show, but Shane Baz, he's been a bit of a disappointment lately after a fast start. I think it's the nicest way I could say it, right? ERA is up at 5.33, whips at 1.41. I believe he was in your bounce back pitchers piece, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was a pitcher. It was young pitchers with good stuff and bad results. And so, the one thing that I did not like when I was looking at him was the slider he throws middle. And the changeup is not a pitch that Stuff Plus likes. So he's largely become a 2-pitch pitcher. Something I noticed after I wrote that piece was that his 4-seam fastball has good shape against left-handers, but not against right-handers. So I think he's an immense candidate, and I think I did say this in the piece, for a cutter or a sinker, and maybe both. And the slider isn't cutting it. So I think this is too slim of an arsenal as it is now. And it's the kind of thing that Stuff Plus sometimes misses on. It's like too slim of an arsenal that has platoon issues and command issues that don't show up in Location Plus so much. You know what I mean? That's like you throw the slider middle, and Location Plus says, yeah, that's probably a good, okay idea. You're throwing a slider in the zone. Yay, But the hitters say, man, he only throws sliders middle. So anytime I think it's a slider, I know it's where it's going. So I would drop Baz for Will Warren. I would drop Boz for Ryan Weathers. And Logan Henderson's gives me a little bit of pause because he's changeup first. The model doesn't love him overall, but the strikeout rate really loves him. So I might drop Boz for Henderson, even though my model says don't do that.
Okay. No, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure we had a good feel for whether or not Boz was maybe a little over rostered at this point. It sounds like he is, at least relative to a few of the names in that 60-ish% range right now. Boz gets the Jays at home on Saturday, then goes on the road to face the Astros next Thursday. So not terrible matchups, but also not like layups that you're definitely feeling good about.
I do recommend reading that piece by Michael Rosen about the park there. The park has been a problem for Ryan Pepio. I think it's a big problem for it. We did on this pod tell you to probably stay away from Zach Littell because he just didn't even have the stuff to overcome that. And I think that's been a good piece of advice so far, even if, his ERA is lower than Boz's. I still believe Pepio will come out of this tailspin, but when you're looking at that Boz start at home and you do have him on your roster, you're deciding whether or not to start him, try to read that piece and read between the lines and see if you can get any wind data for that day, because it's a wind affected park. It's not necessarily as much about temperature as it is about wind.
Yeah, it's a tough place to pitch. I thought they had enough stuff, enough talent to get through it and end up being undervalued on draft day. That hasn't played out yet. And if it was going to play out for me, I kind of feel like they had to bank some good ratios in the first 2 months before it got warmer, before the hottest of the summer months.
Supposedly, it's supposed to play more even over the course of the season.
I hope it does. I mean, maybe the weather, the wind patterns maybe are more favorable. I don't know, but I'm a little nervous about how much Rays pitching I've got right now, but we'll try to manage it accordingly. Taking a look at the big board of the pitchers on the radar for this weekend, this is across varying levels of roster rates. There's some low rostered guys that I wanted to throw at you as hey, I'm in a 15-team league, and there's actually a few guys out here that might help me this weekend. Rare that you get more than a couple to choose from, given the state of pitching right now, but I think you could probably say that's the case. That includes Noah Cameron, Ryan Gusto, who I think we're probably on like a down arrow for right now, Ryan Nelson, and Slade Ciccone getting chances for the Guardians right now. Do you think any of those four end up being good multi-start pickups for us?
I just can't with Nelson, dude. I give up. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand him. This stuff has always been great. He has these great outings. I throw my hands up in disgust. Ryan Gusto, we've said, and then the last one was Ciccone. Was there another one?
Ciccone and Noah Cameron.
Oh, Noah Cameron. It's hard for me to just go in on a guy that has like a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. I know it's a good park, but it's like we say it's a good park, but it's actually by park factors overall, it's like an even park. And then you look at his strikeout minus walk rate, and it's basically zero. So I can't get on that one. The one thing I noticed about Ciccone that I thought people might find interesting is that he has a new changeup. It looks like the changeup, the difference on his changeup is remarkable-ish. I mean, 2 inches more drop and 5 inches less. No, just 2 inches more drop, but 2 inches more drop and 2 miles an hour more velo. So that combination is kind of intriguing. Stuff Plus finally likes his changeup. It always thought he was pretty good with the secondaries, with the curveballs and the sliders. So if he does have the changeup, he still doesn't have a great four seam, but the Stuff Plus likes his cutter. So I think there's enough here. Overall, I think this is an intriguing version of Slade Ciccone. I think it's a pick up and sit if you can. If you need somebody for this week, I guess it's watch him on the wire and hope he doesn't make himself more expensive by pitching well against the Dodgers.
Beyond that start against the Dodgers, too, looking a little further down, it looks like he'll miss the Angels in the series after that and catch the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. Advanced schedule analysis failed. Then he gets the Reds at home if he stays in the rotation. So you might be waiting for 2 weeks.
Remember him by that Reds start. If he's still in the rotation, it could be a good pickup for the Reds.
Now it is our pleasure to be joined by our senior hot dog correspondent. He is back. Niv Shah, founder of ottoneu, for our baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and ottoneu segment. Niv, how's it going?
It's great, guys. I think I'm gonna put the senior and senior hot dog correspondent today.
That's what I was gonna say, dude.
Yeah.
I want a credentials check, dude. What? How did you get senior? You just jump in here and you get senior.
Today, I think we're gonna talk about why I've earned that title. Today is the day.
I think he's gonna prove it to Eno. Before you even get into that, I'm going to stand by our decision to give you the senior title right away because I value and respect your years of experience eating hot dogs at the ballpark.
I do have a lot of experience doing that.
I feel like experience deserves to be rewarded with the appropriate title. So I think
I love
we gave you the right
Thank you.
title from the start. Now, Eno thinks you still have to earn it. So I guess if you don't do well
Should
with
have
this
been
segment,
junior.
then down to junior.
No,
Downgrade to
today,
junior.
you talk to me after today. We'll see.
All right, so what's going on at Nats Park? Because I know you were traveling, and there were a few series that happened you didn't get to. You got back to the ballpark, and the taste of the major stand is gone?
So the taste of major stand is still there. While I was gone, I had a friend. We will call my friend the junior hot dog correspondent. Relayed that during the Guardians series, which was in early May, there was no hot dog for the Guardians game. And I was a little skeptical of this report. So I went on Tuesday to the Braves game, and there was no Taste of the Majors dog. The Taste of the Majors stand is there. They have a Natitude dog. I believe we've talked about the Natitude dog a little bit. It has every idea. Listen, I'm going to need a pay grade bump if we're going to have that hot dog. Like, has mumbo sauce.
You already got the title.
No, man. It has mumbo sauce. It has jalapenos. It has brisket. I don't know why there's brisket. It has a lot of ideas. So
that's a lot of attitude.
It's a lot of dog, yeah.
It's a kitchen sink dog. But they didn't have the regular hot dog, and it turns out Tuesdays are the thread here. Tuesdays are $5 beer and hot dog nights at Nats Park, and I think they just don't want to sell regular or any kind of like other kind of hot dog. I think it's all hot dogs on deck for the $5 dogs.
Hot dogs are
nothing
$5.
elevated. Only the $5 base dog. So,
or maybe that's super popular, so they just need all the dogs for that.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's like it's like you should see that like people are coming out with like stacks of hot dogs. Like it's ridiculous. So my friend went on a Tuesday. I went on a Tuesday. So I think it's Tuesdays that don't have the Taste of the Majors. I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to try to go tonight to the Giants game and hopefully have some content for you guys next week. But on Tuesday, I did go to a different hot dog stand. The Nats the end of last year, introduced a Korean corn dog stand. There's now two of them in Nats Park. One is down near home plate, and one is up in the 300s. Korean.
Does that one in the middle have cheese in it?
Yeah. So the ones on the left and right are the same. That's a hot dog dipped in like sort of a panko crust.
And like a sweet chili?
Yeah, I put a little sweet chili on it. They give you the sauces. There's a mayo sauce and a sweet chili sauce. Sweet chili sauce is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's deep fried right there. It's deep fried fresh. So these aren't sitting around. They're crunchy. They're crispy. The hot dog, awesome.
Nice.
I briefly want to talk about the middle one, which was a mozzarella sausage situation. That one also delicious. No question about it. Look at it. The gooey cheese, freshly fried, delicious. The sausage was maybe a Jimmy Dean breakfast link, which is like, I don't think that was on purpose, but it worked.
Yeah.
Right?
I
like
can see that.
It had
Then the sausage itself has a little sweetness in it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and then again, the crust is doing a lot of savory. But I think if they had a non-breakfast sausage, it would have really hit. But it had like a little bit of that maple flavor, you know? Yeah. But the hot dog with there's a reason local news is covering the stand. It is awesome. It is absolutely one of the better ballpark things. Yeah, I know, man.
These look amazing. Yeah. The gooiness of the cheese and the cheese one. The other thing, I watched the news clip that you sent ahead of time. It's called Son's Hot Dogs, right?
Yep, Son's Hot Dogs.
They also have powdered sugar that you're supposed to consider putting on there too.
So
It's like a little bit of a coating layer, like on before you put the other stuff on. It looked like the recommendation, like if you're gonna put the kimchi, I think it's a kimchi powder or kimchi seasoning.
So they have two things at the park that I did not. I wanted to get the base experience, right? Like generally when I go to a place, I'm like, let me try the base thing. There's two add-ons. One is a kimchi seasoning and one is a Cheeto seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go back. And then I didn't realize the sugar is over next to where the sauces are. So you apply the sugar yourself. I didn't realize that for the first hot dog. When I went for the mozzarella situation in like the 6th inning,
that didn't seem like one you wanted to put.
Well, the sugar was empty, so it seems to be in high demand. It was like a sugar shaker, and it was just so. Yeah, and like I don't know. Do you want that on? It's already. I didn't know the sausage was going to be a little bit sweet, but I got what I needed to out of that. But they were both great. My partner's a little concerned about my heart health, so a couple of salads this week.
Slow
that
down.
Yeah.
We did have a waiver you had to sign to become the senior hot dog correspondent. We're not liable for any health-related problems that come.
I feel like I've earned the
hot dog
senior.
Correspondent.
That's right.
I'm on the beat on the Taste of the Majors, and you just saw those Korean dogs. They were. So hopefully I'll have a good Taste of the Majors update next time I'm on. I have a Giant series this weekend, and I think in a couple weeks the Cubs are in town.
Oh man, now I'm thinking Italian beef with the giardiniera, and you got to get it wet too. So you got to eat it fast, but you got to toast the bun, dunk it.
Oh man, yeah.
A little juice.
Some nice
this conversation
provolone
is just
on
going to
there.
make the Giants dog so bad tonight. I'm going to be like, "Where's my Italian beef? Where's my pickle? Come on!" Oh man,
we got to get our resident chef Ryan McLaughlin on this one.
Oh
like,
yeah,
right,
let's
Ryan,
do
how are we gonna make this? This is gonna be real good.
Rates and Barrels Test Kitchen. Let's go.
Oh, I'm all for that. Let's talk about some movers in ottoneu though. In recent days, looking back at the past week, most auction, most added, most dropped. Some names that I thought were really interesting. There's some relievers that are flying around in ottoneu leagues right now, and I feel like the last couple of weeks I have not been that interested in new sources of saves. This might be trending in the right direction, though, with one name in particular, Luis May. I saw Luis May pitch this spring for the Reds. This is a bullpen that we've been picking on for a few years. I am an Alexis Diaz skeptic.
He's a Pagan skeptic because of the homers.
Pagan's only going to get it done for so long, so this could have some short and long-term payoffs. Maybe, could this be the Justin Martinez of 2025, perhaps?
I'm pretty curious about what kind of leagues are adding Luis May. If they're trying to add for saves, then fine. Saves, find them wherever you can, right? But playing in that ballpark, and I don't know how. Like, it's looking for bodies that pitch. Like, how often? Like the Reds are kind of bad, right? Like, how often are they up? How often is he going to come into situations where he's facing a good home run hitter in Great American, which is not what you want, and how often
a guy with a 20% walk rate in the minors almost.
Yeah, find them where you can get them, I guess. But Reds bullpen, walking is better than giving up homers, I guess. But
I have a question for you. In saves leagues, I found the strategy hard because in the off season when you go into draft, people will pay like $20.
Oh yeah, easy.
Closer.
Yeah, easy.
And that just seems crazy. And I feel like a lot of the $20 closes aren't kept. And a lot of them are veterans that are near the end. Why were they not kept before? It's like Kenley Jansen goes for $20.
Well, it's sort of the same thing as star hitters, right? Like what you're paying for. Like if you get an Edwin Diaz or a Josh Hader, those guys are $20 guys. Clase was a $20 guy. The reason that happens is because one, they're available. Two, no one is ever going to keep them. It's like Judge or
it's like a rental saver.
Yeah, but that's there is going to be a lot of churn at the top end of the market because you can get them at the $75 range for a Judge, $20 range for a good closer. But then you're looking at inflation at the end of the year, and you look at the overall situation of your roster, and you're like, I can't rationally. If I throw them back, I'll get them for the same price next year.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay that extra, like.
I definitely try not to keep them when they're around 20. And I feel like a lot of the $20 guys are veteran guys that are come off a bad season. That's why they're out there and they're near the end. They end up being sort of rental closers. I will do that if my team is competitive, you know, and I have extra money because the rest of my team is cheap and this is the year and I need to have another closer. So I'm not saying don't ever do that. I'm just saying that happens. We know that happens. $20 closes in draft.
Right.
Then if a guy has a couple saves in a row and then gets auctioned, he gets it's really expensive too.
Yeah.
Right. So then you're paying 10. It's not as much because nobody has as much money, but it's, you know, you can be 10, $15 in season. My response has been get a lot of the Louis Mays and try to get $2 high stuff relievers before they get saves.
Right.
But I did that going into the season and I had $5 to $7 Lucas Urseg, Justin Martinez,
right?
Michael Kopech. You know, I had like 5 of these guys.
The sure thing is why you pay the
I've
extra
got 4
15.
closers, and I have 0 closers right now.
The sure thing is why you're spending the extra $15, right? But at the end of the day, like if you're looking at your team and you're like, do I want a $23 Josh Hader next year? The answer is probably no, right? Like at some point, that is either like. They either burned you in just enough times, like everyone remembers the bad outing their closer has, right? So you want to cut them anyway, or
those are the most traded guys. You trade them with the loan, and that's why they get cut, and that's why they're back out there.
Yeah, and it's actually like a good part of the economy, right? Because if you're coming in and you're like, I'm rebuilding, you know that the top end talent is probably going to be available. Very rarely is top end talent kept because if it's market priced, it's going to be available. Like nobody can afford to keep them, so. Right. It's a feature, but you do have to playing the bullpen shuffle game and hoping that your guy ends up being a closer, and then there's a reason that they weren't the closer named when you got them, right? Yeah. And the result of that can be like, oh man, you like blew up.
It can take a long time to build a bullpen. I mean, it's part of the rebuilding process that we don't think about, and I've been rebuilding, and I just traded for Jack Caglione, traded Kirby for Jack Caglione, like a $20 Kirby for Jack Caglione, and I'm doing my work on my lineup, and now I'm like, you know what? I think I should spend the rest.
What
of the
am
year
I missing?
Doing?
Right.
What the rest of the year I should be spending $1 to $2 on a bunch of relievers and starters, and just try to catch some lightning in a bag that I want to actually keep for next year. Be the beginning of my next pitching staff.
Right, but then the way if you do catch a little bit of lightning in that bottle, you're going to be in the market for a $20 Josh Hader at the
That's right. Yeah.
So it's not like, I think that's like, that's the right way to approach it. You can't come in and be like, I'm going to spend $100 on my bullpen because there's not enough money for that. But the cherry on top is going to be your Edwin Diaz, your guys that are like, rock solid, like trust. Yeah. It's tough for me to talk about that as a Guardians fan right now because Clase has been quite up and down.
But he's in that group though. Yeah.
But he is back up, right? So it's like still like the people who spent the money on that, like they're going to enjoy that for the rest of the year, hopefully, and then Clase will be available. Like that's just how it works.
The thing I like the most about this format is you have to make an impact at least in like a platoon role, like a high impact in the platoon role to crack the threshold for being rosterable and usable. And it forces you to take chances on higher variance players because the rosters are so deep, right? So like Will Benson was a popular ad. We talked about him as a guy that probably hasn't changed a lot, but he's getting more playing time again. Had a run last year for about 4 months where it looked like power speed, maybe a low average, good OBP was possible. But then you look at the recent drops and you see Kyron Paris's name right over there. Another guy that had too much swing and miss, shows power, shows speed, even has multi-position eligibility. I think that's the right way to play, even though the success rate on taking chances on players like that is generally low. And I think part of the reason it works is because, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I don't think the average ottoneu player believes it's going to work. So the prices are relatively low. It's just it's a group.
But ottoneu also penalizes if you move too much. Because every time you pick up a guy and drop him, you only get half the money back.
Right.
You know? So
but I think
you can't just be like churning and be like, keep trying. So that does create a level of not cynicism, but like conservatism when it comes to movement. You know, people don't want to, you know, just pick up that guy just because he might be good.
You can't churn him.
He is going to be good.
You can't churn and burn on all of them, but you need to be willing to take chances on some guys like this, because if they stick all year and go 2020 and you get them for $3, that ends up being a massive windfall.
That's huge. Yeah.
I think the way to think about that is that you have a 12-team league, you know, typically. You only need 2 guys or 3 guys of those 12, like 3 owners, 3 managers to say, yeah, you know what? Okay. Like when the Will Benson email comes through, auction starter Will Benson, 9 guys, 10 guys are probably, like you said, Derek, rolling their eyes and being like, no,
not this again.
Come on, man. He hit 3 home runs against the Guardians this week. Give me a break.
Right.
But there's 2 guys that are like, yeah, I'll throw $3 at that. And that's true for any combination of player and like 2 or 3 guys in the league.
It's almost always 3 or 4 people bidding on a guy.
Yeah, it's like 2 or 3 guys. It's not the whole league doesn't bid on free agent auctions very often, right? Sometimes for like when the college players recent draft players come up, like high school, college, in June, July, whenever like the draft's in June, so they start signing really in massive, like late June, early July. You'll see some 10 team bids or whatever, but generally it's like 1 or 2 guys bid, but it's just a different 1 or 2 guys for each player, because everyone sees a different little bit of like, oh, I'm a Guardians fan, so I saw Will Benson do this thing, so I might bid on Will Benson. But someone who doesn't follow the Guardians or doesn't follow the Reds might be like, Will Benson, didn't we already do this? But then they're looking at like a Giants player that I'm not thinking about. So it's sort of like a thing where
also different win cycles. Some people are so competitive. Right. Some people don't have any money. They're like, I have like $5 right now, and I need to spend it all on the pitching the rest of the year.
Right. I in my league, I cut Roki Sasaki when the injury news came. I had a pretty expensive one, $38 Roki Sasaki.
That's such a windfall, though, in terms of money you can spend now.
So it's good in 2 ways. One, I'm not sure that, like, should the expectation have been that he is going to be an ace this year? I don't think anyone would say that. Maybe, well, some people might have said that. Let me take that back. But the $38 is just the opportunity of getting to root for him, getting like he's an exciting player. Maybe next year he will step up into the ace category. But now I have very little production loss. Frankly, whatever production there was bad. So it's good to be rid of him from a production
Even if he
perspective.
came back and pitched well, there's very little likeliness that he'd be
And, you know, most right, that's right. And then most ottoneu players know about the arm injuries, the arm issues that he was coming in with.
You also have to think, would you keep him at half the price?
Right.
Because at some point he'll be available for auction at $19.
And
you have to think, is that a big loss for me?
I have 30 days in which I can't bid on that. And so is that going to be the flip side of that is like Adley Rushman, who I have at $25, who is an instant grab at $13. So you can't cut him. Can't cut him because I don't want someone else to have a $13 Adley, so I have to sort of suffer through that. But the flip side of like all of this, Roki is now gone and someone else grabbed him, so I have $38 in cap. And I can spend that. Yeah. And like, right. Like, that's when's the last time you had like $30+ in cap? It's pretty fun. I played Roki for starts, so my team is not great. And the result of that is like, I am going to
go get a bunch of pitchers.
I'm going to be the guy who's pushing on every minor league top 5, top 10 prospect. I'm going to be a little bit difficult when the college players or the draft players come around.
Go to $3 on some of those guys. Go to
$3 on when a fun pitcher comes by. Yeah, someone just got promoted. Mick Abel, we were looking at the list, right? He's going pretty hard in drafts right now, or in auctions right now.
$25 for him in one of my leagues.
In our staff league, the Fangraphs staff league, I think 9. He went for 9. And he got demoted right after that start.
I know. I was pretty surprised.
It's so like, there's this opportunity of like, the availability of money means I can actually tangle with those bids. I'm not necessarily going to go for Mick Abel because I think that's a little bit, he had the best possible debut and then he's not up. So it's sort of this terrible combination of spending money on him right now. In that everyone knows what his debut was like.
I'd love to have him for $1, but it's like they're not.
I'd love to have him for $3.
Yeah,
but I have $30, so I can like run around and be like, oh, if you're gonna mess around with starting someone who just had a really good start, or someone who's getting promoted or whatever, you're probably gonna have to pay close to your max bid on them. If not, I will take them
because I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm the enforcer.
Right. Yeah. So it's like a little bit of a poker situation.
Before we let you go, Niv, there's we got a leaderboard for session 2 for our rates and barrels 6 picks group.
What? Free bases is third again.
Yeah.
That was a hat last time.
How many more hats do we have to give away, Eno? And then
somebody beat free bases.
Well, you could put a hat on top of the hat if he really wants to. You win them both.
Hat, man.
Yeah, or give them to a friend, or wear them both. It's your call. Maybe cut grass in one and wear one to parties. I don't know. Like, I don't know how you guys all manage your hats.
This is my evening wear hat.
Evening wear hat. This is my boat hat that I'm wearing right now. Can you explain what you think a reasonable gap is? Like, how many contenders do you have? So we're what, 7 days? Yeah, today's the 23rd. The next session starts June 1st. If you haven't been playing in our 6 picks groups, you can join the next one. You can join anytime you want, but you can be in for the next session, which I think will have another hat if Eno still has hats available. All right, Eno still got hats. We'll give away a hat for session 3. My question for you, Niv, was what's a reasonable gap between the current leader and someone else in the standings with a week to go in the session? Like, what do you think is an actual closable gap for someone trying to chase down a leader?
So I think, I had to give Data Split credit here. He's been putting up big numbers every single session, every single day of this session. I think it's going to be a lift to catch him at like the 26 point. He's going to play every day. And so it's going to be a lift. But if you look at the leaderboard on any given day, right? Like if I pulled up yesterday's leaderboard right now, first place had something like 100 points, 103 points, right? And if you're, say you're Data Split and you had a great day, which for any number of people would be like 60 to 70 points, that entire gap is gone. Like your entire lead is gone. So
somebody needs to get that big 100 day. Yeah.
Yeah. You get that big 100 day and all of a sudden you are just extremely cooking. And if you get 2 big, like 90 point days, like I don't think very many leads are safe. I think you would have to be like, I think Data Split's in a good position. I would prefer to be Data Split instead of anyone trying to catch Data Split. But I don't know. Like 20th yesterday, 62 points. First place, 103 points. That's a 40-point swing in one day. Like it is extremely doable.
Still gets on the daily leaderboard.
Yeah, right. So like and that was with like 200 plus people playing. So 20th is a great outcome, and 40 points behind first place.
The rain has been killing us. Me and my son do it the night before, and
the weather has been really brutal, really unlucky, and we've had like the Twins Guardians series was a disaster. The Red Sox Orioles yesterday got rained out, right? So we've had some
Chapman in that one.
We had a bunch of Nats games rained out. Like it's been tough, but I don't think any leads are safe. And I think like the closer you can get it to like the 1 o'clock Eastern time when you enter, like the closer to like the deadline, that's you really want to know if there's going to be baseball. Like once we get into June, July, it'll be a little different. But
also like catchers are surprise sits. You were doing the catcher the night before thinking they're going to play, but you want to make sure your catcher is going to actually play.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for Soderstrom and Ben Rice.
Yeah,
those guys.
We do it the night before. We want to always just take.
You just are going to take Ben Rice. Yeah, like it's just like I know
Rice is also being surprise sat. So
yes, yeah, I got surprise sat by Rice earlier this week, which was.
And you can't just pay $20 on your catcher every day.
No, yeah, that also feels like lousy. It feels like a real bad use of resources.
Your money.
Yeah.
Well, if you're like me and you had a rough May, life came up and you didn't get lineups in every day, good news, you can start again next weekend. Session 3 starts June 1st. But get into the habit before then. Build the healthy habits. Then you really are going into June on a high note. Niv, I think you get to keep that senior hot dog correspondent title. I
think I earned it today.
I never doubted you. So I think that
we'll have words about this later.
Okay. It was just all in fun.
All right. Well, Niv, we appreciate you. Look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Talk to you soon.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. Thanks to our senior hot dog correspondent, Niv Shah, for joining us as always. Be sure to find our link to the Discord in the show description if you haven't joined us there already. Eno's on Blue Sky, enosaris.bsky.social. I'm dvr.bsky.social. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We are back with you on Tuesday. Enjoy the long holiday weekend in the States.
Thanks for listening.